Let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, into the house of the God of Jacob. Let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, into the house of the God of Jacob. From Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. We will walk in His footsteps, and He will teach us His ways. Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. For there He will judge many people and decide for all nations, both far and wide. Swords will be beaten into plowshares, and nations will not learn war again. Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. Come, let's go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. To the house of the God of Jacob. To the house of the God of Jacob. Did I miss a verse? Can we sing them all? Seems like it should be one. It's so long. Is it all there? Oh, cornerstone, yeah. Started nice and slow, so we have somewhere to go, you know. Like everybody here. In Zion, for a foundation of stone, I lay in Zion for a foundation of stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, a sure foundation, a tried stone, precious cornerstone. He that believeth shall live in peace. Wonderful Counselor, the everlasting Father. Wonderful Counselor, Almighty Prince of Peace. I lay in Zion for a foundation of stone. I lay in Zion for a foundation of stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, a sure foundation, a a tried stone, a precious cornerstone. He that believeth shall live. Hebrews. Hey, El Gibor, of stone. I lay in Zion for a foundation of stone. Tried stone, precious cornerstone, a foundation, a sure foundation. Tried stone, a precious cornerstone, he that believeth shall live in peace.
Nice Hebrew practice there. We have more. We have more to go.
Shall come to pass before they call. I will surely answer prayer. And even though they are all yet speaking, I will hear their prayer. Before they come, I will surely answer them. Even while they are all yet speaking, I will hear their prayer. Lord is present in His sanctuary. Let us praise the Lord. The Lord is present and His people are gathered here. Let us praise the Lord. Praise Him, praise Him. Let us praise the Lord. Let us praise Him, praise Him. Let us praise Yeshua. The Lord is present in His sanctuary. Let us sing to the Lord. The Lord is present and His people are gathered. Let us sing to the Lord. Sing to Him, sing to Him. Let us sing to the Lord. Let us sing to Him, sing to Him. Let us sing to Yeshua. Present in His sanctuary, let us love the Lord. The Lord is present and His people are gathered here. Let us love the Lord. Love Him, love Him. Let us love Yeshua. Love Him. present and His people are gathered here. Let us worship the Lord. Worship Him, worship Him. Let us worship the Lord. Let's worship Him, worship Him. Let us worship Him, Lord. You in Zion, oh God. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. You all our vows will all be fulfilled. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. It is you, Lord, who hears our prayer. It is you, Lord, who listens to our cry. To you, everyone will direct all their ways. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. You, all our vows will all be fulfilled. Praise awaits you in Zion, oh God. Shabbat shalom.
Good evening. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hello. How's things going? Well, you came, so there's new pages. There's new pages in this. So I actually have to look at them. The blast off went really well for those of you who were asking me. I thought. I don't know. I heard things, and I see a lot of them came back, so that's good. So they didn't run away from the congregation screaming and deciding to move somewhere else. We had a really good time. The next hot topic that we have is we have a full color extravaganza. I knew that we were going to have that. Now, here's the deal. It's Saturday, March 23rd, starts at 6 p.m. Standard potluck rules. You don't know who's here to talk about the standard potluck rules that people can talk to you about.
I'll talk about it.
Okay, go to Gary. Go play it. So, and the Purim play is going this year to be film noir. It's starring Mordecai Private Eye called Dilemma for Mordecai. Almost made it Murderheim, but I thought maybe that was too much of a dial, and it's adorable, and we're borrowing it from friends who come from Washington, D.C. Very, very cute. And so everyone who has a fedora, get ready to wear it. And I don't know, women, what do you want to wear? Well, you can wear a fedora. Women can wear a fedora for sure, but I'm just trying to think. The feminine equivalent, I don't know what women wear for snoods. So wear a snood. If you don't know what a snood is, you should maybe look it up, but not right now. S-N-O-O-D, found in your local crossword puzzles. But anyway, that was a thing that went in there. Anyone who would like to be in the play, there are several juicy parts. There are a lot of tiny parts. If you just like to have a tiny part, that's great. But please see me, okay? ASAP. I have a copy of it with me, and we could Xerox it off and give it to you. You see going on. But if you'd like to do it, it's pretty fun. Pretty fun. All right, so the next Stuffed Doll and Game Night it's a long time from now, April 27th. That's after Pesach. Oh, and other good news. The work day that happened, it was 2 weekends ago. I only saw what happened as the comeuppance. They already hauled away a totally full dumpster of stuff, and we got a empty dumpster. And so now we can start filling that one up too. So congratulations to those who are here. Both on the boat, congratulations. It looks great, and things got moved around. And junk got thrown away.
Yay!
There isn't anything else I can see that's specific to talk about, so not too much. But anyway, this is the springtime. Our spring holidays are very enjoyable holidays. First, we have Purim, which the commandment on Purim is to be as silly as you possibly know how. I love Judaism, where you can be as silly as you want to be. In fact, can you think of another religion? Please be as silly as you would like to be. And we're going to honor God in that. Purim is a conundrum. It's a paradox. It's not what you usually think of as a holy day. It's not usually thought of as fulfilling any great directive from the Lord God of Israel, and yet it does. It invites us to be lighthearted and to laugh about how great God is and how unexpected His mercies are, because Purim is all about that's not what you expect. In fact, you could say that after every page, that's not what we expect. None of it is what we expect. So, in that spirit, please enjoy the springtime. Passover will be with us soon, except it's very late. It's in April. It's in the middle of April. So you have time to just get your sillies out, and then we'll have Passover. Thanks for coming tonight. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
As we begin our service together this evening, please turn to pages 10 to 13 from our Gain book. It reminds us that as part of why we're here, and as a reminder for us even when we're not here, we are helping our sin during the week, that we're committing to, in reverence and awe, serve Him daily. And He's the one who we serve daily, the one who is in fact the shield of our ancestors and of us. And so we respond to pages 10 to 13, which will lead us, and then we respond
Yom Shabbat Yom Ratzah L'Hadiach Lahem L'Fnei Na'avod B'Yirah V'Chad Nishmo B'Kol Yom Adon HaShalom, Makadesh HaShabbat, U'Marek Sheli, U'Medi HaPi Kedusha, Le'ameru Shnei Oneh, Zeh L'Maaseh
With his word he was shield to our fathers. By his decree he will give life to the dead. The holy God, with whom no other can compare, who provides his people rest with holy Sabbath day. In reverence and awe we will serve him daily, and every day we will thank him suitably. He is the God to whom all things are due. The Lord of peace who makes the Sabbath special. He blesses the seventh day for his people, to give them joy and remind them of creation.
The Lord of peace is the one who makes Shabbat special. He blesses this day for his people. It becomes a reminder, a guarantee of the relationship he shares with us.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto, v'tzivanu blessed are you, Lord, King of the universe, who's given us the command and is what Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto, v'tzivanu l'chiyot el goyim, v'natan lanu Yeshua Meshikenu ha'or la'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of our universe, who has sanctified us by your commandment, and commanded us to be a light for the nations, and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I can heal at our Brit Hadashah portion on the bottom of pages 136 and 137 reminds us that having given to us Yeshua, our Messiah, he has in fact fulfilled the promises he made and has answered our prayers because he has come. And therefore, as we lead his people, there is a purpose for God here, and that purpose is to enable us to serve him in holiness and righteousness before him. That becomes our response. It begins in the following fashion. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Yisrael.
Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. It said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. The oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days.
Having come and having redeemed his people, he sits now enthroned to guarantee the destiny of his people. As that throne room scene we now enter, and to him we now respond.
Elohim asher diber, mikadem yamin rabot, v'yamin rabot el ha'avot, be'yad ha'nevi'im, diber aleinu be'acharit, hayamim ha'ele, be'yad ha'vein asher, Saleh Oresh Kol, Yado, Amasai
of me. So heartful, B'Tselem Hashmuto, Ve'nosei Kol Givaro, Rav Hagura, Kolaka She'asa, Tihur Katayim, Yashav Limi, past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now in the end of days he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority beside the Majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and beautiful, fearful and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever.
Although seated now in the place of authority beside the Majesty in heaven, an image that was in fact understood by the rabbis of old, the ancient sages. He awaits the time that we await as well, as the Party Kaddish reminds us of pages 156 and 157, when he will come and return.
Glory, Saint, his great name in the world which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to spread, and bring near his Messiah in your lifetime, in your day, and in the lifetime of all the house of Israel. Speedily, rest of you.
Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen.
May there be great peace and good life for us and for all Israel.
Amen.
He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel.
Amen.
Pages 42 to 45, Ashrayesh reminds us that happy are those who eat and serve God, the one who is, as those pages remind us at the very top. Met Elohei Olam Malkeinu, through Yaakov Magin Yishem, he is the king, the rock of Jacob, the shield of our salvation. And so we now respond and remind ourselves, happier those who follow his guidelines. The greatest God who gives them to us. Which leads in Hebrew, we learn it in the English, and then we will all in the paragraphs until the second refrain.
Happy is the
And
man
who keeps your commandments, your Torah, and who places your word on his heart. It is true that you are Lord of your people, the mighty King to plead their case. It is true you are the first and the last, and besides you we have no King, Redeemer, and Savior.
For the beginning times and for the later times, your word is good, and it endures forever and ever. Your word is true and faithful. It is a statute which shall not pass away. It is true that you are He. You are the Lord our God and God of our ancestors, our King and King of our ancestors, our Redeemer and Redeemer of our ancestors, our Maker, the rock of our salvation, our Deliverer and our Rescuer from everlasting. All this is your name. There is no God besides you.
From Egypt you redeemed us, Lord our God, and from the house of slavery you delivered us. All their firstborn you slayed, and your firstborn you redeemed. And the sea of reeds you divided and drowned the proud. But the loved ones you caused to pass through, while waters covered their adversaries. One from another did not remain.
Therefore the beloved praised and they extolled God, and the beloved ones gave hymns, songs, praises, blessings, and thanks to the King, God who lives and who lives.
You are high and wonderful, great and feared, who brings low the proud and raises the humble, who brings forth the prisoners into the liberty, and helps the poor, and answers his people in the time when they cry to him.
So praise our exalted God. Blessed is he who is to be blessed. We join now with Moses and the people of Israel who sang a song to you with great joy. As they all said, so now we also say.
Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders?
Ikamoka ba'elim Adonai, Ikamoka nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilo,
We raised a question which we now answer. The answer is found on pages 88 and 89. Surely there is none like you, O Lord among the gods. Rise and we respond on those pages. Come on.
Malchut kamalchut all over me, and shall come before Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Imelo Leolam Vaed, Adonai Oz Lemo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo V'Shalom. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
And he needs to reign throughout all of our lives. That is what we now affirm and commit ourselves to as we respond. The Shema, pages 34 to 39, we turn and face Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, as we respond on this witness.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Ha'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, V'kol amacham, v'kol nafshecha, v'kol me'orecha. Ve'hayu ha'dvarim ha'eleh, asher Elohim etzavta hayom alecha. V'shinantam lenecha, v'divarta bam, v'shitecha be'techa, u'letecha b'derech. U'shakcha u'vonecha, u'shartam le'ota yadecha, ve'hayu l'tokachot b'einecha, u'tchatam al mezuzot beitecha, u'misharecha. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
We now respond to our great God, looking for the time when he will in fact restore his presence to Zion. The one who restores his presence to Zion is our immediate portion to remind us. We find in 6 pages 74 to 79. The one who does that is in fact our rock and our sheep. He also watches over us every day. Utilize these words as you respond, and as you remind yourself that your service, our service, should be forever pleasing to our Creator. You, O Lord, our God, are our rock, our shield, that saves through every generation. And so all the living shall thank you and praise your name faithfully, because you are the God of rescue and liberation. Blessed are you, O Lord. Your name is good. And to you. In pages 88 and 89, Vayakhel so reminds us, or pictures to come, when he restores his presence to Zion. And not only we, but all the right to the side. As the Torah goes forth from Jerusalem, the word of the Lord.
Vayiben Aharon vayomer Moshe Uma Adonai vayafutzu evacha veyanuzu mesanecha mipanecha Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Ki mitzion tetzei Torah Odavar Adonai Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'ol Yisrael It came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel.
And now, as his people, we express our commitment that we will in fact heed rather, your words, O Lord our God. Page 133, that is for our period of now and us, in the future.
The ark now unveiled its treasure
To our eyes and minds and hearts.
Inside the scroll of Torah
stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require? To fear him, love him, serve him, walk in
All the Lord has said, we will do.
Yishabalak Avoteinu, Am Yitzchak, you blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he blessed Vayakhel. And he blessed Vayakhel. And he blessed Galilee. And he blessed
who honor God and the covenant. May the Holy One bless them and their families. Blessing and prosperity in all the world.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach Leolam Hayeh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is blessed.
Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, the ruler of the universe, who chose us from all people and gave us. Blessed are you, Lord.
Vayakhel Moshe el kol adat b'nei Yisrael vayomer alehem ele hadvarim asher tzava Adonai la'asot otam. You may be seated. I'm going to do something a little different. Rather than translate for you, I'm going to have those of you, especially those who were in the Hebrew blast-off, take out your bulletin, and in the inside sheet, you guys also, since you were in it, you will see those very lines. Are you all there with me? That means now you can follow along with me as I read yet again. Everyone got it? Follow along and see if I get this right. Vayakhel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael vayomer alehem ele advarim asher tzivah Adonai la'asot otam. Got it? Good. You're ready. Now here's what it means as to what you read. And it says, and Moses assembled all of the, another word for assembly. So let's call it all of the community now of the children of Israel. And he said to them, these are the words. Slow down a second. When he says these are the words, what is he referring to? Yeah. What came at Mount Sinai? Very good. Which God prescribed for you to do them. Not just to hear them, but to do them. And the very next verse goes on to talk about keeping the Shabbat. Now, we talked about that last week. Why are we talking about it again? Why do we talk about it again this week? Because something has intervened between the time we talked about it before and the time we talk about it now. Something called the golden calf. Two things about this passage that are striking as they take place after the time of the golden calf. Number one, God says, these are the words I spoke. In other words, the covenant is still intact after the calf. And you know that's intact. Why? Because now you're told to fulfill the sign of the covenant yet again. That's an amazing God. And that's how the story begins. You thought I was going to tell you the rest of the story?
Exodus chapter 30, verses 11 to 16. Adonai said to Moshe, when you take a census of the people of Israel and register them, each, upon registration, is to pay a ransom for his life to Adonai, to avoid any breakout of plague among them during the time of the census. Everyone subject to the census is to pay as an offering to Adonai half a shekel, 1/5 of an ounce of silver, by the standard of the sanctuary shekel equal 20 gerahs. Everyone over 20 years of age who is subject to the census is to give this offering to Adonai. The rich is not to give more, or the poor less than a half shekel, when giving Adonai's offering to atone for your lives. You are to take the atonement money from the people of Israel and use it for the service in the tent of meeting, so that it will be a reminder for the people of Israel to be before Adonai to atone for your lives.
5:49. Moses said to the great community of the people of Israel, "Here is what Adonai has ordered. Take up a collection for Adonai from among each other. Anyone whose heart is willing to bring the offering for Adonai, gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, fine linen, goat's hair, clean red skins, and fine leather, acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing, oil, and for the fragrant incense, onyx stones and stones instead for the wisdom, dust, and dust."
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe. Give us, Lord, of the truth and life of the Master. Thank you. Blessed are you.
He has in fact given us the Torah as our text, and I remind us, and so we accept them as our ancestors did, and as they stood before him, so we now stand before him to accept these words. The Zohar Torah is that response. It's pages 98 and 99. Transliteration, that's page 95. And I don't want anyone to lose me in last off and look at the transliteration. And now we respond.
Zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's command by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated. Etz Chaim, pages 96 and 97, is a reminder that these words are to sink deep into our lives and grow up into life. So we respond on those words, and we remind ourselves of that.
Es Chaim Ilama Kazikim Ba V'tov V'keha Me'ushan Rakeha Darkei Noam V'kol Tioteha Shalom. Ashivenu Adonai Elecha Ve'yeshuva Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Elohim. Ashivenu Adonai Elecha Ve'yeshuva Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Elohim. Tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
And now, as Uznu Kol Yomar reminds us, we get to stand before him clothed in the robe, so to speak, he provides for us. So we do stand before him as his priests of old did. As now we are the priests of now. And we respond on page 78.
will call your mom. Shua, face. When we are blessed, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, there is Israel's father. Arise, O Lord,
to your resting place, you and your mighty arm. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah.
Al Shay Panay.
As we now greet and congratulate one another for having had the opportunity up front to handle God's word, you get to greet and congratulate one another for having the opportunity to be here tonight.
I'm not gonna make you stand up for a hug, but
Just checking. Okay, you're good. When I'm gonna go home. I'm not feeling well. Can you just unplug it and after you press the stop, just unplug it and close it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The microphone input is not working.
That's a headphone jack.
Right, but we got to take the microphone input last week, and I think it's a setting.
So I can do it too.
Is it in all the way? Yeah, it is. But, All right, I got one.
No, I was not generous to you to give you extra time to chat with one another. It's just that battery ran out. So while the battery ran out, you guys did not.
No, our battery don't run out.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Listen louder, that'll work. Now, you've looked at the bulletin already. If you look at the bulletin, to find this week's parashah, second inside page, you'll find it says, Vayakhel Shabbat Shekalim. And it includes both tonight's expected parashah, as well as the one from last week. What's going on? Well, again, questions. All kinds of questions. Questions such as, that arise from this, what's this business about Shabbat Shekalim? And why are we going backward to last week's Parsha? Wasn't last week's reading of it good enough? In answering those questions, I want to weave together several important principles to help us become true daughters and sons of destiny. Now, this Shabbat is called Shabbat Shekalim. It's one of the 4 special Shabbats preceding Passover. Now, the name Shabbat Shekalim, the Sabbath concerning the shekels, is in accord with the teaching found by our sages in the Talmud, which says, on the first of Adar, in other words, before Purim, on the first of Adar, an announcement is made concerning the Shekalim. Why? Because this is then to be laid aside annually in preparation for bringing this to the temple at Passover. Now, because tonight's Shabbat precedes the beginning of the 2nd month of Adar, yeah, gang, we're lucky. We not only get to celebrate extra days for holidays, we actually get not just a leap year or an extra couple of days, we get a whole month. So this is one of those leap years where we get a whole extra month. So it's the month of Adar that we get to duplicate. Given what Dr. Patrice said at the beginning, think about that a second. The month of Adar, it's the month of Purim. And the crazy lunacy that's part of Purim, and the fun that's to be part of Purim. God says, okay, this year, you get not just 1 month to let it all hang out, you get 2. So anyhow, there we have it. That's part of the joy of the Jewish calendar. The beginning of the second month of Adar comes this Wednesday evening, because this is a leap year, as I said, and so we celebrate this Shabbat, the Shabbat Shekalim. And so in keeping with this special pre-Passover Shabbat, we then have an additional Torah passage for this Shabbat, and it is the one that was read. Chapter 30, verses 11 and 16, where God spoke to Moses, saying, when you count the people of Israel during their census, each person must give a ransom payment to Adonai for their life. Let me stop for just a second to remind you of what's going on here. A ransom payment. It recalls God's ransoming us when he liberated us from Egypt. And it goes on to say, everyone who becomes counted in the census will give half a shekel. It's a holy shekel. Half a shekel is the donation to Adonai. Everyone who becomes counted in the census from 20 years old and above must give an offering to Adonai. By the way, notice it's the term offering. It's something we give back to God because of all that is given to us. That has to do with the meaning and intention behind it. Now, what's interesting is, as I pointed out last week, and we've done this from time to time, the literal meaning of the commandment in verse 12 is, when you elevate the heads of the children of Israel. That implies that the function of these contributions was not only to facilitate a census and to provide for the Mishkan, the tabernacle, but also to raise the status of the contributors. Another thing here tells us about the equal participation of all the people, and that indicates that all Jews and those who've united with us in community must share in achieving the national goals. In other words, that everyone is supposed to pass through the census. So, everyone who does so then gains great benefit and is elevated. Now the Parsha continues to point out the rich person will not pay more, the poor person will not pay less than half a shekel to give as a monetary offering to Adonai. And then it goes on to say, to make atonement for your lives. That's to remind us that everyone's on equal footing. Everyone has equal status before God. And so what is required is very minimal in amount. So everyone can do so. And then it goes on to say, to make atonement for your lives, and it will be a memorial before Adonai to ransom your lives. And so it then acts as a reminder that God did ransom our lives. And as such, this becomes a moment of what we might call national remembrance. It's a time where we reenact, as we did when we received the Torah, so to speak, a few minutes ago, where we get to reenact ceremonially what has taken place in our history. It's a recreating, if you would have it, of our shared communal history. Verse 16 then goes on to call this shekel payment a zikaron. Zikaron. Now, this is a Hebrew word that can be translated as memorial, as reminder, as remembrance, all of which applies and works, or as in one of the ancient Targums, a good remembrance. And it is exactly that if we understand it. But we need to understand it. So what does it mean that the half shekel payment was to constitute all of these things? All of these things or aspects. Well, as it turns out, the same word is used frequently in the Torah. The tefillin are called a reminder, zikaron, on our foreheads. Aaron's chest plate was a zikaron before the Lord. Joshua instructs all Israel that the boulder memorial was to be erected because, as he says in chapter 4, these stones are to be a zikaron for the people of Israel forever. Now, in these examples, this idiomatic word, zikaron, conveys the idea of sharing an experience on a communal, on a national level. Everyone in the nation, in the community, understands the experience and participates in its lessons, in fact, in its reenactment, so to speak. So the zikaron then is necessary in order to build a communal, a national, a collective memory. And this memory then guides all of us as a people into thinking and behaving in the manner in which God has now instructed us, directed us. Through the zikaron, we all get to remember the important matters and memories of our communal, national existence, including such important things as our national calling. In other words, how we are to live. Along these lines, we can also see zikaron as a pointer. Once again, raising some questions. So it's a reminder of what? It's a pointer to what? Well, we've already unwrapped part of it, but for another part of the answer, we need to go back quite a long ways, all the way back to an earlier parsha called Vayakhel, Genesis chapter 48, closing portion of Genesis, which sets up the book of Exodus. Now, Vayakhel, if you have forgotten the text, speaks of blessings. It's a grandfather blessing his grandsons. It's a father blessing his sons. Imagine the scene at the end of the portion. Jacob, whose name is also Israel, calls his 12 sons to his deathbed and blesses each one of them. But his real concern, at least according to our ancient sages, ancient rabbis, is that his sons might abandon his God after he has died. And so in the Midrash, his sons respond to this unstated fear with words that have become familiar to us. The Midrash says this is how they responded to that unstated fear of Jacob. They said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Adonai. But now listen to that carefully. They're saying to him, as you translate quite literally, listen, Dad. Remember Dad's name was Israel? Listen, Dad, the Lord is our God. Only the Lord. Striking. And so upon hearing this, the Midrash tells us that the dying patriarch sighs quietly, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed, in that case. Blessed is he whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. So each time we say the Shema, we are rehearsing this moment. We are reminding ourselves of this. It is part of Zikaron. We are pointing out that we are the children, now acknowledging the God of our father, Israel. And we are pledging our own loyalty to the tradition of our ancestors and to the God who gave us those very traditions. Now, I'm going to suggest that this farewell scene should not fail to move us. But it's also confusing, because you see, Jacob also has daughters. And specifically one named Dinah, whom we know of by name, is no longer in the story at this point. Is she not also worthy of blessing? Especially in light of the emphasis that we find in our parsha tonight on all, on everyone. On this functioning as a communal reminder, or zikaron. Now the question of blessing our daughters emerges then by way of omission. Jacob and the rest of his family have been reunited with Joseph at this point after many years. Joseph, remember, whom Jacob thought was dead, is not only still alive, but he is in fact a father with children of his own. Now, facing death, Jacob says, chapter 48, I never thought I'd see your face again, and look, God has also enabled me to see the face of your children. And so Joseph brings his sons close to his father, with Manasseh, the older, first. But what does Jacob do? He crosses his arms, putting his right hand on Ephraim's head and his left on Manasseh's. And Joseph steps in, he intervenes, he says, no, not that way, Father. This is my firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But Jacob wants to put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. And then Jacob blesses them both, together with these words, by you shall the people of Israel give their blessing, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, why does Jacob bless his younger grandson first? You know, it's hard to imagine this blessing without recalling the earlier moment, when Jacob himself earned the blessing that his father Isaac meant for his older brother. And so in blessing his grandsons, is Jacob then reenacting his own history, doing intentionally what Isaac did by accident? Is Jacob asserting through his act of blessing that birth order no longer determines one's destiny? And that, as he had come to realize, blessing is an act of God's will as opposed to an accident of chance or of birth. You know, another rabbi reflected on this and said exactly the same thing. It's a matter of God's call. It's Romans chapter 9. The story raises other questions. Jacob's blessing of his grandsons has become, over the centuries, the blessing that's bestowed regularly on boys. Raising the question, but what is it about Ephraim and Manasseh that merits our blessing our sons in their name? And what about our daughters? So at this point, permit me to engage in a midrash on the midrash. You see, it is that Jacob did not have to worry as he worried about his sons. He did not have to worry about his daughters following God. And you see that reflected on a regular basis, as we will reflect, in fact, next week, because it's Rosh Chodesh, on the role of the women as not having mentioned, therefore not participating in the golden calf experience. The rabbis understand this to mean that the men turned from God, but there's no indication that the women did. So my midrash on the midrash, he wasn't worried about his daughters, but perhaps on his sons. Anyhow, as we continue, we don't know much about these two young men. We meet them first when they are born, chapter 41, and we encounter them again at this moment of blessing. They are children of an Egyptian mother and of a father who was one of the most powerful men in Egypt. If you think about that for a while, you begin to get reflections of another set of kids. Someone powerful in Egypt, someone who is not Jewishly born, as parents of a set of kids. It's Moses and his wife and his kids, somewhat like Joseph's kids. Their children, Manasseh and Ephraim, who were born in the diaspora, not in the land. They're not only Egyptian, but they're also Israelite. They're children living in two worlds. So why do we bless our sons in their name? Could it be because, like so many Jews throughout our history, they grew up in the diaspora and still remain Jews? Could it be because we imagine that they followed their father's footsteps, being part of Egyptian society and politics, and yet still connected to, still part of Israel's community? Or perhaps we invoke Ephraim and Manasseh because these are the first two siblings in the Bible who are not recorded as having fought with one another. Think about that for a second. With Ephraim and Manasseh, the family story that unfolds in the book of Genesis, in which siblings struggle with each other, that part of the story finally comes to an end. They teach us that we do not have to fight over blessings because there's enough of them to go around. Now, whereas we continue to bless our sons by reference to Ephraim and Manasseh when we say, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh, the tradition for our daughters is different. We bless them with these words. May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Now, why are these blessings so different, we should be asking? Well, one modern rabbi, suggests the following reason for interpreting the difference. He says the blessing holds them, our daughters, up to the highest models. May God make you like the greatest women the Torah knows. Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Nicely done. Nicely reflected. However, let me add this. We should expect both our daughters and our sons to set their sights high. We also hope to create an environment where both daughters and sons feel valued simply because they are alive and are our children. But perhaps there's yet another way to interpret these blessings. Maybe we can understand Jacob's blessing of his grandchildren this way. Ephraim, may God help you to become the best that Ephraim can be. Manasseh, may God help you to become the best that Manasseh can be. And maybe when we say these blessings, we should also fill in the names of our own children as we bless them. Or in the words of the modern Jewish poet Marcia Falk, be who you are, and may you be blessed in all that you are. Now, in keeping with this, there's a Jewish folk tale that explains how value and beauty is understood in Judaism. It goes like this. A recently arrived immigrant to Israel is inquiring about his uncle, who was preceding him, Moshe. And so the question arises, which Moshe are you referring to? The visitor says, the person who responds says, I know several people by that name. And so the visitor responds, well, Moshe, the cross-eyed one. Cross-eyed, repeats the person he's speaking to, Yossi, questioningly. Perhaps you can give me another clue. Of course, the visitor says, my uncle has a buck tooth right in the front of his mouth. Cross-eyed and buck tooth, murmurs Yossi. By all means, do give me another hint. Well, Uncle Moshe had a large wart on his forehead. Let's see, cross-eyed, buck-toothed, large wart on his forehead. Just one more hint, please, pleaded Yossi. Well, Uncle Moshe was well known for his extra-large, bulbous nose. Oh, him, shouted Yossi. Sure, I know him. He's such a beautiful Jew. Why is he such a beautiful Jew? Well, our Parsha gives us perhaps a hint as we get back to it now. Moses, the text says, said to the whole community of the people of Israel, here is what Adonai has ordered. Take up a collection for Adonai from among yourselves. Anyone, everyone whose heart makes them willing is to bring the offering for Adonai. And then it talks about the various things that were brought. Various kinds. And so, our response to the God who blesses all of us and considers all of us beautiful, like Uncle Moshe, what should our response be? Well, it should be like their response, as we've just read it, or as it continues to read. All the artisans then said to Moses, chapter 36, the people are bringing more than is needed for the task entailed in the work that the Lord has commanded to be done. Moses therefore had this proclamation made throughout the camp. Let no man or woman make further efforts towards gifts for the sanctuary. In other words, their efforts had been more than enough for all the tasks to be done. Too many gifts, too much volunteering. Now that's a problem that we probably all wish to have. And it's a clue to the relevance of this week's Parsha, Vayakhel, to our times, when community in almost any form seems in short supply. The key word in the Torah's explanation, which is repeated some 25 times in chapter 35 alone, is a term usually pronounced whole or kol. The word means all, or whole, or each, or every. You see, not a single Israelite is left out of the sacred building project. Everyone whose heart so moves him or her shall bring gifts, Moses tells the people. And in fact, all of them do. The text goes on to say, let all among you who are skilled come and make all that the Lord has commanded. And note too, is that the people are commanded to give what cannot truly be commanded, even by God. A movement or a response of the heart. And so both men and women come forward as the Torah emphasizes, encouraging us, if you would have it, to imagine a procession that includes short and tall, young and old, rich and poor. It's a group, an assembly, a community, to use the words that begin our Parsha, Vayakhel and Adat. It's a group as varied as the gifts they offer and the talents they deploy, the colors with which they fill the tabernacle, which kind of blue, purple, crimson, and the materials that they supply, whether it's yarns or fine linen or goat's hair or tanned ram's skins, or silver and copper or wood, spices and so forth. And in this context, when God singles out Beit Salel by name to make designs and give directions, the man stands out precisely because he is one, supervising a diverse and harmonious whole, because the emphasis is on community. He's been endowed by God with the skill to do all the work needed, assisted by everyone else to whom God has given skill. As far as God's concerned, there is no such thing as an unskilled laborer. He still does all. And so this becomes a communal effort and activity. And why has this call for funds and volunteers been so successful? Well, human beings always need to be needed. We know that. And the Israelites at this point in their history have extra need, let me suggest, for that need in the immediate aftermath of the episode of the Golden Calf. They had thrown themselves and their jewels into the construction of an idol. And now with their lives spared, thanks to Moses' intercession and intervention, and with God's continuing presence among them assured once again, they're offered the chance, the opportunity to demonstrate their atonement. And by the way, notice how strategically the passage from last week is repeated at this particular point, with its atonement emphasis. It's repeated now in our readings after the Golden Calf story to remind us that God has in fact forgiven yet again. So they were offered, back to our text, the chance to demonstrate their atonement that God has once again enacted for them, to demonstrate that by giving all of themselves to building a sanctuary for God so that he might actually live among them. They act as one, driven by a shared need and by common aspiration. They desperately want to move toward God and keep God close by. Is that what motivates us, all of us, to move toward God and keep close by? Not just as individuals, but as a whole community. Sharing in the blessings which are scattered among everyone, and utilizing the skills which are given to everyone. That response is what is to come from the heart. You might want to examine your heart to see if that is in fact your response. And if not, then take some time to begin to direct your hearts, as sometimes we pray during the summary form of the abridged form of the Almighty. God, direct my heart. That might need to be our prayer. Take the next minute or so for time of quiet reflection and response. We do in fact have a calling, we have a task, and we have the opportunity to do. As the Elena reminds us in pages 102 to 107, and as we respond in anticipation of the time. And God will in fact ensure that the world is perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty. The time the kingdom of David's greater son. And so, we are now ready to reflect on that and to respond in pages 102 to 107 as we face Jerusalem.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשה דברים הרצון, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם מלכנו כהן, וגור עלינו כעונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשחרים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר ארץ, ומושב יקרו השמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו וגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אלוהינו, אמת מלכנו, אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for He has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like Him, for He stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. There is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. V'ne'emar Adonai lamech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shamo
All but one of you is allowed to be seated.